once again, everybody was able to ask each other, so when did you finish the Seder last night? Last year, last year I didn't have to lie. I was
Yeah.
just able to say when I really finished. Hey, listen. Okay, so Dr. Gemara, we're going to get back to familiar Gemara. The Gemara is going to give us the finger this morning. The Gemara says, Kama hu shir shokos. What is the shir of a kois? How do you measure a revis? So we were talking about different measurements yesterday, but now the Gemara offers us another way to figure it out. Rabbi Yossi B'Shem, Rabbi Yossi ben Pazi, Rabbi Yossi ben Bivi, B'Shem Rabbi Shmuel, Etzba'ayim al Etzba'ayim, 2 fingers by 2 fingers, al rum Etzba umechta u'shloshethba, by 1 1/2 and 1/3 of a finger. Now we had in Sochem the conversion from revius to fingers, and over there the Gemara says 2 by 2 by 2 3/5 or something. So this Gemara is not consistent with our Gemara in Sochem, because this Gemara spells out a smaller shear. So the article brings it up, and he tells you to look somewhere or Tshuva. I didn't have a chance to look that up, but there's a discrepancy between our Tshuva here and the Gemara in Pesachim. The Gemara in Pesachim, the article actually makes the same cheshbon here that we made in Pesachim, that it's 10.8 cubic fingers. But he said that that's the Gemara that we learned in Pesachim. This Gemara has it as a little bit less. Zok Gemara, Rabbanan de Kisri, Rabbi Yossi bar Bibi b'Shem Shmuel, Ostia. And again, I'm going to look into the Gra, who completely changed the Girsa, and doesn't follow the Girsa of. I shouldn't really say that. I was going to say he doesn't follow the Girsa of the article, but it's still accurate. The article doesn't go with the Gra's Girsa. So I like using the Gra because that's consistent with the husband. So it's Amar B'Yechana. No, it's not here. It's further. Austria, the Rav Nosson bar Yossi bar Yehuda. Nothing was still here. Austria, the Rav Nosson Rav Yossi bar Yehuda. So let's see what the Gemara says. The Gemara says as follows. Funny, Yovesh is Kezias, the Rav Nosson. What if it's Yovesh? So the wine has dried up. How much wine will it be that you're yotze with? So the Tatan says, only of yain karish because I from Sharinam. If you have dried up wine, you're Mishire, not with the Revius, but with the Kazayis. The reason for that is the Vikara have a Revius. If wine loses its moisture and you just remain with the thick wine crusty remains, it would work out to a Kazayis. So the ratio of solid to liquid would be that a liquid of Revius, once it's dried up, will be a solid of a Kazayis. And if it's hardened, you have to have a full Revius, the lav bar meziko, because it's not bar mosik. So it says Yovish is Kazayis de Reb Nosson, so it has to be Kazayis. Rabbanan the Kisri, Rabbi Yossi bar Bibi, Shem Shmuel, Ostia, Reb Nosson, Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda. So the Gra changes it from Reb Shimon to Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda. Amar Reb Nosson bar Revius l'chashiyik mish v'heva Kazayis. So the Takon tells us who is Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda. If we're going to soon learn that there's a machlokes, we know that a Kazayis of an Avela is Mitama, it's Pami, and it's Mitama. However, what about the blood of an Avela? So there's a machlokes, Bisham and Bisol. Bisham holds that the blood of an Avela is Tahar. And the Shmuel holds that the blood of an Avela is Pami. And Rabbi Yehuda explains that even though it's Pami, you would have to have a revius of blood. Why would you need a revius of blood? Because the revius, when it hardens, nets a kazayis of solid, and since a kazayis of nevela is matama, a revius of dam, which would be equal to a kazayis, is also going to be tummy. So the Gemara wants to suggest that our sugya, where lagabe of the Shabbos, you're carrying out wine, the shear of a kezias would work out to a revius of liquid. So too, it's similar to what the Rebbe Yehuda said, that a revius of liquid is just like a kezias of salt. Zok to Gemara. Absinu b'shem Reb Shimon Levi. Ma'aser the paradis, the Predas Rebbe, the mule that belonged to Rebbe, the Mesa that had died, the Tiharu es Dama Mishum Nevela. And they were matter, they said that its blood is tar, so it might have touched something, and they passed it that it was tar, the blood would be tar. So the question was, this blood was it tar completely? Which would be like the Shita of Beishamai, who holds the Dama of Nevelos, not the Dama? Or was it only tar up to a shear of a Revius? But once there was a Revius, it would be Tame, which would be similar to the Shita of Beisil, according to the understanding of Rabbi Yosy by Yehuda. The Shol of Eliezer is Reb Simon. Reb Eliezer asked Reb Simon, at Kama, that we say it's tar, up until what point is it tar? Is there a point that there's enough blood, such as a Revius, will it be Tame at that point? The lawyer asked him to play, and Reb Simon ignored Reb Eliezer. Imagine there was a psak, there was a psak in the house of Rebbe to say that the blood is tar, and Reb Eliezer asked Reb Simon to understand the psak. Is it tar indefinitely, or is it only tar up to a certain shear? And he was just ignored. So Reb Eliezer asked B'Shol Reb Shimon Levi. So he asked Reb Shimon Levi, Amar Levi, and Reb Shimon Levi was kind enough to elaborate. And he said, Ad Revius tar, Yosy Revius Tame, which would be consistent with what we're saying in Basil, according to the understanding of Rabbi Yosy bar Yehuda, that Avada Nevela is really Tame, but under Revius is like less than the Kazayas of Nevela. That's why they were mitzvah. But he picked, he was Mavayish, Rabbi Eliezer, all the Lechadavli. And he sort of gave a Eliezer a kick because he didn't answer. Rabbi Simon didn't answer Rabbi Eliezer, Eliezer question. The doctor of Rabbi Simon, because Rabbi Simon didn't answer him, he didn't answer. Rabbi Simon did not answer the question of Rabbi Eliezer. So it was like a slap in the face to Rabbi Eliezer. When we don't know why he didn't answer. Rabbi Bibi have a Yosef, Matli Hadinov. Rabbi Bibi was saying over this story, this Shaila of a Nevela that was tar in the house of Rebbe, and there was a discussion as to how much of the Nevela would be tar, how much of the blood of the Nevela would be tar. Omoli Rabbi Yitzchak bar Kahana, Ad Revius tar, Yosy Mikan. So Rabbi Yitzchak asked Rabbi Bibi, who was saying over the question, who was saying over the halacha, Rabbi Yitzchak asked, do we say that it was only Torah up until Revius and more would be Tamei? Or are you saying that no matter how much dam of the Nevela there was there, it would still be Torah? And again, who bought that? He ignored it. So Amalei Reb Zrika. So Reb Zrika told Rav Bibi, if Zrika told Rav Bibi, who was saying the story over, I don't understand. Again, I don't understand. Begin to sholach, because he asked you a question, a good question, a legitimate question, at the botbeh, you're just like kicking him, you're embarrassing him, you're disrespecting him, you're not answering his question. Amalei, no. And the reason why I didn't answer him is not because he's asking a good question. It's begin to have us daitibi. Since I don't have a clear mind, I don't have my mind with me. Since I don't have a clear mind, I don't feel I'm in the position to be able to answer his question. Why am I not of clear mind? The Amr of Kanon, Prophet says, your life will be hanging in your eyes. What does that mean? Not the Hail of the Gemara. This is referring to someone who struggled. This is someone who does not own land, so he can't plant and cultivate and grow his own tefillah. The Taflim uses some flowery language that a person who owns his own land and is planting, he has certain brachas. Ein lo karka, he doesn't have karka, which would grant him the following brachas. Shetehei emes me'eretz titzmach v'zuri outside. When he plants, he would be to emes me'eretz titzmach, And then the tzedek mishemayim mishkaf, he looked towards tzedek from shemayim, ideh v'shamim, mashe einer kain, one does not have that schus kishlekeach al shana. When you go to a merchant and you're forced to buy wheat rather than grow your own, you don't know if you're going to have with what to buy. You don't know if you'll have money to be able to buy. And so someone who doesn't have his own land is at a disadvantage. But it gets worse. Then it says, you will fear night and day. That's someone who's even less fortunate. That's someone who can't even buy a year in advance. He has to buy in batches. He's even less secure. Then there's even a more insecure person, and that is, you won't even believe in your life. That's someone who can't even afford to buy enough wheat. He can only afford to buy bread from the baker as he needs it. It's like someone who lives off fast food, or someone who lives off a coffee shop. When the pandemic shuts everything down, it becomes very difficult. And Zokt Rabibi Vanot Micha Apalter. I'm like the third level. That's how in what dire straits I am, and therefore I can't think straight because I'm in a matzav of l'ton b'chayecha, and since I'm in such a matzav, I can't think straight, so therefore I don't feel comfortable answering these shaylos. So let's go back to the Gra. Actually, we can just look at the Hafman because he has the same das. It says Malkedain. So the more at what happened? My Hava Allah. Lamaisa, what is halacha? Yoshim Revius Tamei, Yoshim Yehuda, or Yoshim Revius Torah. You pass like a Yoshim Yehuda, like Basil, that Revius of Adam Nevela will be Tamei, or is it Torah? The more Hey, Rabbi Shubin, Torah, Adam Nevela, Shahu Torah. Rabbi Shubin Messiah said, Eidos, that is Torah. You have a raya that it's Torah and Ganson, and at this point, the Gemara understands it that it's Torah and Ganson. So for the Gemara, Mahu Torah, what does Torah mean? Maybe it means Torah milahasha. Maybe all Rabbi Yehuda Torah meant that if you have dam of an avela, it will not be mafsher others drawing a kabel tumah. Avalit moish petama. But maybe it itself will be coming, will be able to be petama. So we don't know yet clearly what halach is. But Tam and Tanina, we learned the price. Dam hasheret, the dam of a sheret, Kivturi has the same halacha, has the same status as the meat of a sheret, which is mitama bechadosha. A small meat of a sheret, if it's merely the shear of a small little bean, it's enough to be mitama. Sheret is mitama in smaller amounts than an avela, for instance. The dam hasheret Kivturi. But it's mitama, it is mitama, but the ain't machshir, it's not machshir. However, the most important line is the ein lonu oid kayoyta b'zeh. There is no other thing like that. So we just wanted to say that when Rabbi Shua ben Psara said that it's Torah, it means it's not machshir, but it really is mitama. The problem is the Brisa by Sheret says that Sheret is unique in that it's mitama ve'ina machshir. But the ein lonu kayoyta b'zeh, there is no other type of thing that's going to be Amen, even though it's not machshir. And therefore, you can't learn pshat in Rabbi Yehuda ben Psara that it's mitama, but it's not machshir, by nevela. Because that, the Brisa clearly tells us, is a unique feature of sheretz. Let's look at the hay in the Gra once again. The Gra says, Ve'ein lonu kayoyta boy. So if you don't have a raya. Sheretz, when we say sheretz, it might not referring to the feature that it's not machshir, but it is mitama. Maybe dima l'shir tum osoi shedamai mitama kibsara. The halacha is by a sheretz, the dam of the sheretz is mitama like the butter of the sheretz, and it's mitama b'chadosha. And maybe that's what the Brisa means when it says vein like boy. There is no other thing that's Matama Bidadosha, like the Dam of a Sheretz. Rather, the Dam of Nevela is Matama with a Revius. However, the fact that it's Mashir, that it's not Mashir, even though it's Matama, that feature might apply equally to Nevela as it applies to Sheretz. And the unique thing that the Bryce identifies as a unique feature of Sheretz is this the sheer Adosha. So Amar Rabbi Yosy, Chaliki Baya, Grain Amiroin. There's a Machloikas Amiroin as to whether or not Dama of Nevela will be Pame once it's greater than a Kazais, or Revius. Tad Amar Tame, one number says Tame, the Tad Amar Tar, and the one says Tar. Manda Amar Tame, the one who learns that the Dam of Nevela Tame would be Rabbi Yehuda, would hold like Rabbi Yehuda. Umanda Amar Tar, Rabbi Shuva and Pesara, would hold like Rabbi Shua ben Pesara. Amalei Rav Avduma the Minuchusa, Rav Avduma Minuchusa said the Yosa makes sense because the Rabbi Yehuda Ma'idayna Devei Nesiyahav. Rabbi Yehuda was the poetic of the house of the Nazi. The story that we said earlier about the breder that died in the house of the Nazi, and they were retired. They were only retired up to a Revius, but greater than the Revius, it would have been Tomei, which is the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda. But Rabbi Yehuda ben Besoya would have been retired in Gansen. So once again, going back to the story that we had that occurred for Predis Rebbe, Shemei Tevatiru, who was retired, the Poichus there was Rabbi Yehuda, and he was only retired up to a Shir Revius, but had it been more than a Shir Revius, it in fact would be Tomei. That's how the Gemara gives the appearance. Dr. Helu Gemara Vayta. We said that the person who's going to go in to make Trumas of Shkolim, he has to be very careful to make sure no one will be choshir of stealing, because if he becomes poor, they'll say he became poor because he was nichshol, that he took advantage of the coins. And if he becomes wealthy, they'll say he became wealthy because he took advantage of the coins. So, Rabbi Shmuel. So in the Mishnah we learned that he's not allowed to go in with cups in his clothing, with big folds, or with anything that has any container, such as a meya or tefillin. So here we're going to learn some more restrictions. Kovetz lo yitron. If he has long hair where he can put the money away in his hair, he's not allowed to be make trumas alishka. The pnei shad, we're afraid he'll put it into his hair. And there's another girsa. The taklin is with a vase, and then someone who's desperate for cash, someone who's struggling terribly, you don't let him go make trumas alishka, because again, his private to steal will be overwhelmed. Honey, we learned. Or even phosphate, they'll kill him. If they had wool clothing that had like a texture to them, they would be combed out very carefully, and they wouldn't be tangled, because once again, if it's tangled, it's something that you can conceal a coin in. If it's combed out, you wouldn't be able to hide a coin in. Tani, another thing is, how do we know he wouldn't put a coin into his mouth? We have to make sure that no one could be choshir him of putting a coin into his mouth. Therefore, medabrim imoy mishah shu nichnas achal shu yotzei. While he goes in to the chamber to make the trumas halishka, they talk to him the entire time. Why? Because we don't want anyone to be choshir that he's going to put something into his mouth. So if we're talking to him the entire time, he won't be able to put anything in his mouth. Why did you talk to him? The imali pume maya. Why don't you just make him go in with his mouth full of water? So if he tries putting anything into his mouth, the water's going to leak out. When you make trumas hashkolim, there's actually a bracha on it. And if he would have water in his mouth, he wouldn't be able to make that bracha. So therefore, we make sure that he's talking the entire time so that he doesn't have any moment to slip a coin into his mouth. They say that the Meforshim say, what's wrong with talking to him? Why maybe talking is better. Why should you put water in his mouth? Why should that be a better method? And the answer is only one person goes in to make the trumas hashkolim. And the reason why only one person goes in is because the ena bracha, So there's not supposed to be a crowd. But small by Nachman, the Shem Rabbi Yonason, I'm sorry, Shem Rabbi Yonason tells us that we have three places that tell us that one must be squeaky clean and one may not even have a perceived conflict of interest, so to speak. The Torah, the Nevi'im, and the What then we find? You have to satisfy the concerns of the people just like you have to satisfy Kodesh Baruch. The Torah Menai Dechsev, the Yisim Nekim Me'Hashem Yisrael, which is the prophet that was quoted in the Mishnah. The Nevi'im Menai Dechsev Elokim Hashem, and the prophet is quoting Elokim Hashem, or Kela Elokim Hashem, Kela Elokim Hashem, Hu Yedeh Yisrael, Hu Yedeh, in the marriage in the Mal, Hashem Al Tashena Yemeseh. That was when the people of the Negar and Beruvain and the Pati Menashe who lived the other side of the Yarden, they built a big Mizbeach. And Klal Yisrael thought that they were building it for Avodah Zarah. They really had no ill intent, but Klal Yisrael didn't know that. And Klal Yisrael was ready to attack them, and they made an announcement. Yisrael Hu Yeda, they'll know, you should know that this is not an Avodah Zarah. It's just, since we're going to be far away from the Mishkan, far away from the Beis HaMikdash, we want everyone, all of our future generations, to remember that we're connected to the Beis HaMikdash. The Tuv Minayin, the Chiv U'Mitzvah the Seich Al-Toiv, Ve'nei Elakim Ve'Adam. Gamliel Zuga, either he was a shotgun, Zuga, he made matches, or Gamliel Zuga, he was in the glass business. So it works together, because someone who makes shidduchim is actually promoting the glass business, because for every shidduch you make, they break a glass, which then feeds into his business of having to make another glass. So Rabbi Yosy Barevi, he asked the child Rabbi Yosy Barevi, which of these three psukim is the most powerful and shows the most clearly that one must be careful of eating the kiyam me'Hashem u'me'adam? Omerlei, it's the pasuk of a Yisrael Nekim, Hashem Yisrael. That's the most obvious and the most explicit, that one must be very careful that he shouldn't be the Makam of Shah.
Sorry, Yossi, did you say before that he goes into the Lishka by himself?
I believe so.
Wouldn't that be like, it's like the most obvious thing that we should do is to have him have Adam with
have company? There should be multiple witnesses.
Right, and it would make his cleanliness even more stronger.
I didn't see it anywhere in the portion. Rabbi Elephant spoke it out. I don't know where he got it from.
Yeah, I went to our scroll here doesn't bring it down either.
Yeah, I didn't see it anywhere. I just heard it by him, so I don't know where he got it from.
Okay.
And also in that bracha material, like I know that applies in personal life, but even the Beis HaMikdash, like we're worried about the Beis HaMikdash having bracha material, but vice versa. So Beis HaMikdash, and we learned this earlier, and they wanted to make sure that it's their coins that would get in the basket. So Beis HaMikdash, the shaklu beinas boisov. They had their shekel in their hands, and they went to contribute their shekel just before they were doing the Trumas Elishka. So you see, the Torah couldn't have been alone, because they went in during the Trumas Elishka, and they threw it right at the place where the Torah was going to be scooping from to make sure that their coin got in. The Torah is chaven, the Torah has kavana, the doch will the Rabbi Elphid also spoke out from a portion the term tried to avoid their coin, but the Pasuk fact is the term tried to get their coin. So we're in a term, so that was the first thing there. Now in a term, once again you have another ride that there were people there. In a term, who entering. The person before he takes the truma says, "Shall I take the truma?" He poses the question to the people watching. And they answer him 3 times. Shalish Pam. And the Tatan speaks out that that's how things were done. There Chachamim who came to do things, everything to do 3 times. So the first time they took from the Trumas Elishka was Chodesh Nisan. So they made the Trumas Elishka from the coins that arrived up until that point. The Chipah the kat beliyos. And then they took a leather cover and they covered the remaining coins because he didn't take them all. He made truma talishka. So they covered the coins. Now, coins kept on coming in because people who sent their coins from far away, the coins might have arrived after Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So Hashniya, the people. The second truma talishka was Shavuot time, and by then more coins have arrived. They won't be mixed with the earlier coins because there's a leather separation in between the older coins and the newer coins. And then he took the Truma Talishka Shavuot time from the new coins, the coins that were on top of the leather. And then the kippah. And then once again, the remaining coins he covered with leather. So he could separate from any new coins that would arrive. The kippah, the kat b'liyos, and then actually, when he took the Truma Talishka before Sukkot, there he didn't have to cover anything because that was the last Truma Talishka. There was nothing else to separate from. Why did he have to separate between the old Shkalim and the new Shkalim? We're afraid he'll take Truma once again from the earlier coins from which you had already taken Truma from. And we only want that the later Truma should be from the fresh coins. The first Truma was L'Shemer Yisrael because it's only the coin of Eretz Yisrael that have already arrived. And we're going to soon see, we already learned that when they're Torah, they're not only Torah on behalf of the coins that are there, they're also Torah on behalf of all the coins that are eventually going to arrive. So this is very symbolic. The first Truma that he took was taking from only the coins that had already arrived, which were from Eretz Yisrael, but Avada, it was representing all the coins. But the next Truma, which is when the further cities that were around Eretz Yisrael, by that time they had arrived. But Shlishis, and the third Truma was L'Shem Bovel, L'Shem Modai, L'Shem Medinois Harachayos. The further the Medinois where the coins hadn't arrived.
Yosy.
Dr. Warren.
Just wondering before Nissan, anything that was left over, they made sure everything was used up from the year before.
No. Actually, we're going to learn what they did. The Gemara is going to be discussing it.
So there's
what they did with the extra money.
Then you would need but they used it for something.
Yes, and if you look at the art scroll, there was like 5 or 6 different types of leftovers. There was what was left over in the lishka after your truma. Then there was leftover if they had extra for the truma. What did you do with that? And then what you do last year? There's so many different types of extras, and there's different things that they were all earmarked for.
But they used it up. They used it. Made sure to use everything up before Nissan.
Yeah, if they didn't use it up, then next year people are going to say, "Why should I give so much? You had extra. You always have to use up your budget." Dr. Gemara, spell base Rabbi Gamliel. Back to Gemara. What was Rabbi Gamliel's? What was their problem? Why do they need to get their coin to be in the basket? Ilu how you snake free. Let's say you have 2 piles of wheat. The tar me'echad mehen al, and you took truma from one pile of wheat, and that was going to also be misak in the other pile. Would that not work? So why did the Beis Gamliel feel that they needed their coins to get in? So let's see what the Gemara says. The Gemara nachas ruach. It really didn't have a functional purpose. It was just that they could feel good. Nachas ruach hilahem shaloye carbon miskarv elam shelahem tchila. They wanted to feel good that they got their coin in first. Funny we learned. Shomat is a katapuliyos. What happens if the leather pouch was taken away? That means the additional coins that came in afterwards would now be mixed with the coins that were there earlier. So the loch is not a kula shirayim. Everything that needs to become shirayim, and you cannot be turned from that. Funny, shlishis, the last set of coins that arrived from far away, that had the most luxurious coins, because we learned that if you're sending it from far away, it's too bulky to carry. So they would cash in the silver coins for more expensive coins. So kum The coins that were shipped from far away were much, much more expensive. There was a lot of gold coins that were very expensive in that batch. Honey, we learned. The first truma on Rosh Chodesh Nisan was L'Shem Eretz Yisrael, but also L'Shem Kol Yisrael, like I mentioned earlier, because it was just symbolic L'Shem Eretz Yisrael, but really it was representative of all the coins that were going to be shipped. Shnia L'Shem Korachim HaMukafin, L'Shem Kol Yisrael, L'Shlishis, L'Shem Bavel U'Modai, L'Shem Medinas Archaikis, and L'Shem Kol Yisrael. Something we learned, not L'Muna Rishona, if you took, so what they had was, we learned at the beginning of the parak, that they had 3 individual containers, and each one of these containers contained 3 saws. And remember, they were labeled either 1, 2, 3, or alpha, beta, gamma. And why were they labeled? Because you have to take first from the first, then from the second, and then from the third. But they didn't wait till they used up all of the coins in the first, and only then did they start taking from the second. Rather, even before the first container was depleted of its coins, they already started to take from the second one before the first one was depleted. And before the second container was completely depleted, they started taking from the third. Once they took from the third and they completely depleted the third, then they go back to deplete the second. And and if the second container was depleted, only then and if they all 3 got used up and they needed more coins, they take more truma. They take more truma from the shkolim of the lishka. The reason why they did it that way is they wanted to be sure that all 3 containers would be drawn from. And therefore, if you would have waited till you completely depleted the first and completely depleted the second, you might not have needed any more shkolim, and then there would have been no shkolim drawn from the third. So we made sure to go to the second and then to the third, even before the early ones were depleted, to make sure they would all be drawn from at least a little bit. But Meir Eimer, so you don't make new shkolim. So we discussed a minute ago that if you use up the shkolim, these 3 containers, you need more, you have to take from new shkolim. You can't go back and take from the leftovers in the lishka. But Rav Meir says you can go take from the leftovers in the lishka, because we still say that they retain their kedusha shkolim as the first row of shkolim that's ready to be brought as a carbon. So Rav Meir Omer, my alam b'shirayim, even the shirayim still have a din of hektish after you take the trumas lishka away from them. Why? Since you still might need extra shkolim, if you happen to run out of shkolim from that you already tired, you can go back to the shirayim and take more, because they still have the kedusha of the shkolim. Now that we were talking about precision and how a person has to be very careful to be noki, it leads into the famous brisa, the brisa that the Mesilas Yesharim is based upon, as to the progression of madregas that exists in the world. If someone is a Zoris, he quickly rushes to do mitzvahs, that's also going to cause him to be pure from Averis. And the topic has different approaches. One of them is a Zoris, even if he doesn't Averis, he'll do tshuva right away, so he stays clean. Or in general, if you're always Zoris to do the mitzvahs properly, then you'll be naki from chet. Nikios, if you're naki from chet, Mavil de Tahira, that brings to a level of Tahira, because you're so careful to stay away from chet. Now, the version that's quoted in the Mesilas Yesharim adds steps, and it says Zeridus revealed in Zehirus and Zehirus revealed in Nikios. But it's the same idea, except we're skipping steps over here. Nikios Mevil de Tahira, someone who's not from chet leads to Tahira, because if someone doesn't have any chet, the chet he has kedusha, and the Kaplan says a person who wants to be naki from chet will go to the mikveh, he mekadesh himself, so it brings to Tahira. Tahira revealed the kedusha. Tahira will bring to kedusha, and kedusha will bring to another. If someone is kadosh, So then he feels the essence of the Rebbeinu Shalom, so that automatically makes him into an Anov. Anov Mavid al Yiras Fate. There's a person will say, who am I to rebel against the Rebbeinu Shalom? Yiras Fate Mavid the Chassidus. Once someone's on such a high degree of Yiras Fate, so then he has a natural love for the Rebbeinu Shalom, so he wants to go over and above to please the Rebbeinu Shalom. Chassidus Mavid the Ruach HaKodesh. Chassidus brings to the highest level, which is Ruach HaKodesh, where once someone's on such a high level of Chassidus, so it leads the Rebbeinu Shalom to gift him with Ruach HaKodesh, and Ruach HaKodesh reveal it Chiyas HaMesim. And someone who's Ruach HaKodesh could make Chiyas HaMesim, and Chiyas HaMesim reveal the Eliyahu Zachar. And Chiyas HaMesim brings to Biat Eliyahu Hanavi, which is the onset of Mashiach. So let's see what the Gemara says. How do you know all this? The reason it's revealed in the Kiyos is the Chila Michaper. The Chila is when he finishes the Avodah, then there's a Kapara, which means finishing the Avodah means Bezrizis, you got the job done, and that leads to Kapara, which is the reason it's revealed in the Kiyos. The Kiyos reveal the Tahira. The Chila Chipur Alei HaKoyin, the Tahira. So once someone doesn't have the Kiyos, it leads to Tahira. Tahira reveal the Kedusha, the Chila, the Tahira V'Kitchu. You see the progression, the natural progression is from Tahira to Kedusha. Kedusha reveal the Anova. Kedusha means Anova, the Chila, Ikoy Amar, Rom Vanisa, Shoyt Ad, the Kadosh Shemoi, Morim, the Kadosh Etzkoin, and then right after that, this Dake V'Shofel. Someone will be another. This Dake V'Shofel. Anova revealed the Yiras Chet. Anova reached Yiras Chet to say, Ekev Anova Yiras Hashem. From Anova leads Yiras Hashem, which by definition is of course Yiras Chet. And then Yiras Chet revealed the Chassidus, the Chsiv V'Chesed Hashem, the Olam V'Ad Olam Al Yireah. You see, Yira leads to Chesed, the Chassidus. The Chassidus reveal the Ruach HaKodesh. The Chassidus brings the Ruach HaKodesh. The Chsiv Ozi Barta B'Chazoin L'Chasidecha. And then Ruach HaKodesh reveal the Chiyas HaMesim. The Chsiv, and this has a twist. It says, Nasati Ruchi V'Achem. I'll put my Ruach in you, which is Ruach HaKodesh. That'll lead to the Chayisim. You'll live. So you see, Ruach HaKodesh leads to Chiyas HaMesim. And then Chiyas HaMesim reveal the Eliyahu Zachar L'Toiv. Chiyas HaMesim reveals the Eliyahu. The Chsiv, Hine Anoichi Shelech Hachem Es Eliyahu Navi L'fnei Bo Yayim Hashem HaGadol B'Anoir. What is the great day? The great day today of Chiyas HaMesim. But it's interesting because here it says, I send you Eliyahu L'fnei Bo Yayim Hashem. Eliyahu Navi will come before the day of Chiyas HaMesim. But the Talmud tells us, yes, Eliyahu Navi will come before Chiyas HaMesim. But it's Chiyas HaMesim that makes Eliyahu Navi come. So once we're roy for Chiyas HaMesim, Hashem will precede the Chiyas HaMesim with Eliyahu Navi, but the catalyst to bring Eliyahu Navi is the Chiyas HaMesim. Kana, the Shem Rav Meir, Kol Mi Shekavu Be'eretz Yisrael. If someone is parked in Eretz Yisrael, Umedaber B'Lashon HaKodesh, and he speaks Lashon HaKodesh, V'oichel Peiroisav V'Tahira, and he eats his pears for Tahira, the Koyre Krishma V'Vayku Ba'erev, and he reads Krishma in the morning and the evening, Yehei Mevuther, he'll have the news, Shechein Keben Elam Abahu. There's a Ben Elam Abahu. And the Talmud gets into Chassidish Torah, and he says that there's three parts to the neshama. There's nefesh, there's ruach, and there's neshama, and there's the guf. So when someone's kavuya control, he's connected to the guf, to oret, so that's misakin the guf. When someone is medaber, the lashon hakodesh, it's mikadosh the nefesh. So oichel parosh v'tahira, that's the ruach, that's misakin the ruach, and the koyer Krishna B'Vayku is misakin the neshama. So that perfects him in every dimension that he has, and therefore he's going to be a Ben Adam Abba. Hadin Allah Perik V'Shlosh Prakim, Hadin Allah Perik V'Shlosh Prakim, Neder, Hadin Allah Perik V'Shlosh Prakim. So I guess we could stop here. We're getting close to davening for those who are davening at 7.
Yasher Koyach.
Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the Woodbine Center.
Good.
I get my.